Okay, this week we're going to start 2 weeks of talking about data processing. And the first part we're going to talk about is what to do when you have qualitative data. So let's say you've done interviews and maybe you tape recorded them and then you transcribe them. So you type them all out, so now they're in the form of text. What we do in qualitative data processing is called coding, and that's the process of classifying or categorizing these sentences, this data, into key patterns or themes. So we're going to go through the data, we're going to read the interviews word for word, and we're going to say what themes emerge out of there. So let's say we start reading them and we say, gee, a lot of people are talking about marriage. So marriage might be one of our themes. And so we start cutting and pasting the different sentences that talk about marriage and putting them into a separate document called marriage. And then we'll paste all the quotes there. And then we'll open another document and maybe that one will be divorce. And so that one will have all the quotes that talk about divorce, depending on what our interview is about. Okay? So that's how we look for different themes or patterns in our qualitative data. And there's software that will help us do this. I use one called, can't think of what it's called right now, Atlas TI. And I upload my Word documents into it, and then I go through and I make little categories and I just click on it and move it over to the section of that category, and so I'm just moving these quotes back and forth into their different themes, and then when I go back I can look at my themes and I can then find more themes within those themes. Okay. Excuse me. So code should be suggested by theory. So when you're doing your literature review, you should have an idea of what kind of patterns or theories that themes are already going to emerge in your data. And you'll be looking for those, but then you'll also find new themes that emerge that you didn't think of, that didn't come from the literature or from a theory. Now, these are also, when we talk about variables, this is the equivalent in qualitative data to a variable in quantitative data, a theme is. Okay. Open coding is that process that we just talked about of breaking down your data, your text, into parts and comparing them for similarities and differences. And then each unit can have more than one code. So when I told you that there was this theme of marriage, there could be several different types of codes underneath marriage too, right? So we could have multiple partner marriages, we could have legal marriages, we could have civil unions, you could have different things under that umbrella of marriage. So the unit of marriage could be broken down into several areas. Memoing are the notes that you write to yourself, and that's where you write down what your codes mean. So when you come back, you can see it. So you write down the meaning and how you used it, how you came up with it. Okay? So you might read about memoing in a journal article, and that's when they're writing notes to themselves about what they did. Okay, a concept map is a graphic representation of the concepts in your study. And we've already talked about what concepts are. So you can use a concept map for both a qualitative and a quantitative study. And I'm going to have you guys make one for your paper. Excuse me. Here's an example from my dissertation. So my concepts, I had foster families and foster children, and I had relationships, and then I had total number of placements. Remember we talked about that's how many foster homes a child lived in. So for my dissertation, I looked at the demographics, that's age, gender, race. I looked at the health of both foster parents and children. I looked at how experienced a foster family was, and I looked at parental monitoring. That's whether they know where the kids are at all times. And then for the foster children, I looked at their emotional health and behavior problems and also social skills. And I thought that all those things affected each other. So if you see the boxes on the left, I have arrows going back and forth between the foster family box and the foster child box. I also thought that all those things affected the total number of placements. So on the outside, there's arrows drawing from those boxes to total number of placements. Then I also had relationships. And I looked at kinship care, which is foster family placement with a relative. I looked at the relationship between the foster family and the biological parent. I looked at how satisfied the child was with the home and whether or not the child felt they had a sense of permanency. And I thought that the foster family and foster child characteristics affected that relationship. So you see there's arrows drawn there. And then I also thought that the relationships affected the number of placements. So there's an arrow drawn between those two boxes. So this is what is meant by a concept map. It's the hypothetical relationship that you think there are between these concepts in your study. So I want you to think about that for your study that you're creating. Okay, I think we'll end here.